Your life is like a very large machine, operating every single day, yet you rarely look directly inside it. You only notice the results. When something goes wrong, you assume the entire system needs to be replaced. One big decision, one major turning point, one dramatic, life-changing move. But the truth that few people are willing to accept is this. Most machines do not break because the main engine shatters, but because one small gear slowly wears down without anyone noticing. Small habits are those gears. They are not loud. They do not create instant feelings of victory, but every day they rotate in the same direction. And given enough time, the entire machine is forced to move in the direction they lead. There is a powerful image worth reflecting on. A single drop of water falling onto a rock does nothing the first time. No crack, no break. But after tens of thousands of drops, the rock changes shape. Not because the water is strong, but because it never quits. Life works the same way. You are not shaped by one single decision. You are shaped by what you repeat when no one is watching. Many people live under the illusion that they need motivation in order to change. But motivation is like the weather. It comes and goes. Habits are like climate. They quietly determine everything in the long run. And small habits have one advantage that big resolutions never do. They do not require you to become a completely different person immediately. There was a man named Daniel who believed he needed a total transformation for his life to improve. He read constantly and made extremely detailed plans, yet everything always returned to the same place. Until one day, he changed nothing big at all. He simply decided that every night before going to sleep, he would write down one single line. Just one line about what he had done that day. Not to show off, not to judge, only to look back. At first, it seemed meaningless. But after a few weeks, Daniel began to notice something strange. He could see more clearly how he spent his time. He lied to himself less, and from there, his daytime choices began to change naturally. Not because anyone forced him, not because of iron discipline, but because he no longer wanted to write down things that disappointed him. This is the power of small habits. They do not force you to act. They change how you see yourself. And when identity changes, behavior follows. There is a very common mistake. People assume that small habits create small impact. In reality, the opposite is true. Big habits often exist only briefly because they demand too much willpower. Small habits quietly slip into daily life. They do not trigger resistance. And because of that, they survive long enough to make a real difference. Each time you choose to wake up 5 minutes earlier, you are sending yourself a clear message. Each time you read a few pages instead of scrolling mindlessly, you reinforce a different identity. Each time you pause before reacting, you train yourself to have a choice. These actions do not create immediate results, but they change direction. The problem is that we are impatient with anything that does not provide fast feedback. We want to see our life change right after one decision, but life does not operate on that rhythm. It runs on accumulation. And small habits are the most powerful unit of accumulation. In the next part, I will help you face a very dangerous misunderstanding. Why humans consistently overestimate major turning points, and why that belief causes them to miss the very changes that could save their entire lives. There is a belief so deeply rooted that it has almost become invisible. The belief that if your life has not fallen into place yet, then you must not have had a breakthrough big enough, not decisive enough, not bold enough. And so people spend their entire lives waiting for a special moment, while very ordinary days pass by unused. That belief is dangerous because it teaches you to look down on the present. You treat small actions as insignificant. You delay change because you think doing little is not worth it. And while you wait for something grand, life quietly continues along the same old momentum. There was a woman named Claire. She always believed that once she had enough time, enough money, enough conditions, she would start living differently. She wanted to write, to learn, to take care of her health. But every day passed without action because she never had a full, uninterrupted block of time. What she did not realize was that waiting until things were complete was the very reason she never began. One day, Claire changed the question she asked herself. Instead of asking whether she had enough conditions, she asked what she could do in 10 minutes. Those 10 minutes became a small opening. Through that opening, a different life slowly began to slip in. Not powerfully, not loudly, but persistently. This is where the truth becomes clear. Major turning points rarely happen the way we imagine. They do not arrive as sudden jumps. They arrive as long, gentle curves. And you only recognize them when you look back. A thinker once said that people overestimate what they can do in one day and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. That sentence touches the very core of small habits. They do not make you feel like you are changing, but they make sure you are not standing still. There is a very specific psychological reason why people are obsessed with big decisions. They give you a sense of control, a sense of starting over, a sense of escaping the past. But that feeling does not last. When it fades, you return to your old self because you have not built a new life structure strong enough to keep you there. Small habits are different. They do not give you instant control, but they give you evidence. Every day, no matter how small, you have proof that you are someone who can keep a promise to yourself, and that belief accumulates, quietly but deeply. There was a man named Thomas. He changed jobs repeatedly, moved cities, ended relationships, hoping that each change would be a fresh start. Yet the emptiness always returned. Only when he stopped searching for a new environment and began changing small actions within the same environment did things finally shift. Thomas started waking up a little earlier, not to do anything extraordinary, but to have 15 minutes of quiet. He began walking every evening, not to build iron discipline, but to think more clearly. These changes did not make his life explode with success, but they made it stable. And from that stability, bigger decisions gradually became timely and right. This is a paradox that very few people are willing to accept. You do not need a big change to have a different life. You need to live differently long enough for big change to become inevitable. In the next part, I will go deeper into the psychological mechanism behind small habits, why they can bypass willpower, and why understanding this mechanism turns change from a battle with yourself into a natural process. There is something critically important that, if you do not understand it, will cause you to return to the same place no matter how many times you try to change. Willpower was not created to carry your life. It was created only to start movement. And if you force it to run everything every single day, it will burn out very quickly. Small habits are powerful, not because they are noble, but because they demand very little willpower. They slip past the mind's defense system, they do not trigger resistance. And precisely because of that, they last long enough to rebuild who you are. The human brain is always trying to conserve energy. When a behavior becomes familiar, the brain shifts it into automatic mode. No thinking, no debating, no motivation required. That is why you can pick up your phone dozens of times a day without ever deciding to. And that same mechanism, when used correctly, can work in your favor. There was a man named Ethan who deeply disliked the word discipline. To him, discipline meant force and loss of freedom. Ethan was not lazy. He simply hated feeling controlled. Once he understood this, he stopped trying to force big changes. Instead, he changed the starting point. Rather than setting a goal to read every day, he placed a book right next to his bed. No requirement for how much to read, just open it. Many days, he read only a few lines. But that simple act of opening the book began forming a new connection. Over time, reading became enjoyable, not because he became more disciplined, but because his brain had adapted. This reveals a core principle. You do not build habits with determination. You build habits with friction. If you want a behavior to happen more often, make it easier. If you want a behavior to fade away, make it slightly harder. The idea is so simple that it sounds trivial, yet most people ignore it because they believe life requires complex solutions. There is an interesting paradox. People who change sustainably rarely talk much about motivation. They talk about environment. They do not ask how to become stronger. They ask how to stop needing strength. When you design your life so that the right choice is the easiest choice, you no longer have to fight yourself every day. Small habits carry another quiet power that few people notice. They change how you speak to yourself. Each time you complete a very small action, you send a signal. I am someone who can begin. I am someone who does not abandon myself. These signals do not make you perfect, but they heal years of accumulated self-doubt. There was a woman named Sophia who believed she was someone who always quit. That belief kept her from starting anything new. But when Sophia committed to a very small habit, writing just one sentence each morning, the important thing was not how much she wrote. The important thing was that each day she had proof that her old belief was not entirely true. When belief changes, behavior follows, not the other way around. And this is what makes small habits dangerously powerful in a positive way. They do not only change what you do, they change who you believe you are. Many people quit not because they fail, but because they misinterpret failure. They treat one missed day as proof that they are not good enough. But people who live with small habits understand something else. One missed day is just one day. What matters is direction, and direction is determined by what you return to, not by what you momentarily lose. When you understand this mechanism, change stops feeling heavy. It becomes a process of adjustment. You stop asking how to be perfect. You start asking how to make it easier to return tomorrow. In the final part, I will not give you a dry checklist. I will help you see 10 small habits as a living system, not to create pressure, but to carry with you for life, so that change becomes irreversible. To be precise, the 10 small habits are not 10 tasks you must strain to remember every single day. They are 10 anchors, 10 very small actions that bring you back to yourself, even when life begins to drift off course. The first habit is starting your day one beat slower than the world. Do not open your phone immediately. Do not absorb noise right away. Give yourself a few quiet minutes to simply be with yourself. This space does not help you do more, but it prevents you from being pulled away from the very beginning. And when a day does not begin in reaction, many missteps are avoided early. The second habit is completing one small task before thinking about big ones. Not for productivity, but to create the feeling that you are steering the day. A sense of control does not come from doing many things, but from beginning and finishing. The third habit is pausing before reacting, not to endure in silence, but to choose your response instead of being dragged by emotion. This pause, repeated long enough, changes how you live inside your relationships. The fourth habit is caring for your body at a minimal but consistent level. Sleep a little more, walk a little more, drink a little more water. You do not need to turn yourself into an athlete. You only need to show your body that it has not been abandoned. The fifth habit is writing things down, even if it is just one line. Not to show, not to analyze, simply to acknowledge. This helps you see where you are actually going, instead of living with a vague sense that everything is drifting. The sixth habit is reducing friction with what is good for you. Place the book where you can see it. Prepare the space for what matters when the right thing becomes easy to access. You no longer need iron discipline to do the right thing. The seventh habit is increasing friction with what makes you worse. No banning, Just make it a little harder, a little farther away, a little slower. That small change is enough to give you a chance to choose again. The eighth habit is keeping small promises to yourself. Do not promise much, do not promise big, but once promised, follow through. Every kept promise is a brick laid to rebuild inner trust. The ninth habit is accepting imperfect days without self-condemnation. You do not need to use a small failure to tell a big story about being flawed. The person who goes far is the one who returns quickly, not the one who never strays. The 10th habit is returning to an old but powerful question. Is what I am doing bringing me closer to the person I want to become? Asked often enough, this question quietly adjusts many decisions without force. Seen individually, these 10 habits are not impressive, but together they form a living structure. And this structure does one crucial thing. It makes living well no longer dependent on motivation. Your life does not change because of one day when you do everything right. It changes because you stop doing the wrong things long enough. And small habits are the gentlest way for that to happen. There is no need to rush, no need to be perfect. Only be steady enough for the small gears to keep turning. And one day, when you look back, you will realize your life changed direction a long time ago. You simply did not notice because it happened in silence.